Sup, ladies and gentlemen, Accolonn here, and of course, as always, joined by Rurikhan. How you doing, bro?
I am extremely tired because I have seasonal migraines. The thing is, they are very unstable, like myself, so they never stick to a specific season. Just every now and then, here's the migraine like 2 or 3 weeks. So I'm going to be having migraines for the next 2 or 3 weeks. It's going to be friggin' fantastic. Sure. It's been a really, I would say, illuminating experience because you get like those bright flashes in your eyes, but it's not really illuminating in a good way.
It's just life's way of giving you, waking you the fuck up, really.
Yeah, really badly.
I've luckily never had migraines, but I think that's because I rage so much that my body just does not have the ability to rage against itself anymore, which is fun because, the podcast is called The Frozen Sodium Throne for a reason, because there is a lot of salt here, and it allows me to get rid of all the anger in my body. So by the time I'm done streaming, usually, I'm zen as fuck, so my body is in complete balance and equilibrium with one another.
Your stream is essentially an advanced form of therapy, is what you're saying.
It literally is, by the way. Like, literally is. I'm not even gonna hide that. That's the perfect way of putting it. My stream is therapy for me. When I'm just so annoyed at the shit that gaming companies are doing, or I'm just annoyed in general.
Oh, man.
I go live, I rage for about 4.5, 5 hours against everything in the world. My chat loves it because they're a bunch of spastic morons. So everyone is just chilling the fuck out, raging against the machine, so to speak. And then we feel better afterwards.
And there's a ton of reasons to complain recently because gaming is headed towards a place where, I don't like where gaming is headed. Like, one of my theories is that about 5 to 6 years from now, I'm mostly going to be playing like older games and not really a whole lot of newer titles. Because even now, just thinking about yesterday, somebody asked me in my stream, Rurikhan, but what titles are you excited about? I was like, well, in the near future, like on the 30th of June, we got Monster Rise Sunbreak coming out, which that's going to be amazing. Then I got Xenoblade Chronicles 3, and then crickets. Crickets all the way until like summer 2023, which is when Final Fantasy 16 comes out. It's just like, whoa, I'm going to have a lot of time to play old video games.
I'm looking forward to Final Fantasy 16. It will be my first ever single-player Final Fantasy game. So, really looking forward to that.
I think it's going to be the best single-player Final Fantasy game ever made because it's just like the way that Yoshi-P and his team... Because even yesterday, people were telling me, oh, Rurikhan, how are you getting so hyped over a trailer? Come on, we've seen thousands of amazing trailers. And I'm like, I'm not hyped over this trailer. I'm hyped over this trailer combined with the team that is developing this video game, which is the same team that is working on Final Fantasy 14. And I know they're not going to jerk me around. At least, all indications are that they're probably not going to jerk me around. So therefore, I'm pretty confident being hyped for that game.
The truth is, if you look at how Yoshi-P approached the Final Fantasy 14 development, making his developers play World of Warcraft, play all of these other MMOs, even to this day, they play a lot of games, right? And actually, Yoshi-P have said it's not just MMOs, that they are forced to play games. They have to play as many games as possible. So you can bet your ass, the Final Fantasy 16 crew were probably instructed to play things like Witcher 3, probably instructed to play things like Cyberpunk.
Dude, they have
anything that's open world, anything that's story driven, they're gonna have to play, right?
One of their combat designers, I believe, came from Capcom, worked on both Dragon's Dogma and Devil May Cry, and I was just like, oh, I love both those games. So that sounds
I've never played
really
any
good.
Of those games.
Dude, you gotta play Dragon's Dogma. At some point, you gotta play Dragon's Dogma. Dragon's Dogma is really good, and it has one of those mindfuck stories that you would probably appreciate, but it ain't no Witcher, let's put it like that. When it comes to like its storytelling and whatnot, it is but it's a really fun game. So yeah, I'd heavily recommend that at some point.
I'll be honest with you, the reason I'm excited for it is I know how serious Yoshi-P is about storytelling,
Yeah.
And I believe, in my heart of heart, I believe that single player games are better at telling stories than MMOs. I believe you can do a lot more in a single player game.
They are better vehicles for stories and narrative overall, but at the same time, 14 is the best story that I've ever experienced. So it's like,
but that's why I'm so excited for this, because Yoshi-P managed to pull off in a medium that doesn't necessarily support great storytelling.
Excel.
Like,
I would say excel. You can support it, but not really excel at it overall, I would imagine.
I think what Final Fantasy ultimately ended up doing, 14 in this instance, what they ultimately ended up doing is they turned the entire story portion of the game single player, right? It's a single player experience, it's a story player experience, but they still had to support the MMO elements during this process. So they have to throw in some dungeons.
In your opinion, you would consider the MMO elements to be kind of like a limiting factor to how good the story could be?
Yes. I think ultimately you can't really do branching options, right, in an MMO. So you can't have multiple endings as an example. Now, I realize
they actually
Yoshi-P,
do that. They actually do that in 14, not in the MSQ, but in some quests they actually do that. There are branching paths.
I call this like sort of fake branching quests or fake or delusional choices, right?
Whoa, delusional.
There's a reason why I call it delusional choices, because it's something that Star Wars The Old Republic does as well, where it gives you choices, but only in quests that affect you and no one else.
Yeah, of course.
Right? So it's not really a world effect that is going to take place. Now, to be truthful, most single-player games do the same thing, right?
Yeah.
Your choices don't really matter that much. They just sort of pretend like it matters a lot, and then it basically all ends the same way. But in a single-player game, you do have those extreme branching arches that you can allow for, because at the end of the day, who is affected by your choices?
It's just you, yeah.
Yeah, it's literally just you. The world can respond to whatever the fuck you decide. So if you want to burn down a village, burn down the fucking village. It's not as if you need to use it again. Whereas if you do that in MMO, well, what the fuck happens to everyone that didn't burn the village? Do they still see their village? Do you not see them anymore when you're in the area of the village?
They get phased out.
It becomes like a maze. You can do phasing, but I've ran through this on my stream as well.
Phasing is bad, yeah. I think phasing is
You're going to have, because you and your friend flies into this place. You make different decisions. Suddenly your friend disappears. You're like, what the fuck? Where did you go? No, I'm right next to you. I can't see you, though, because, my town exists and yours doesn't. So it becomes this weird sort of thing that doesn't always work. But back to the point that you made, Final Fantasy XIV managed to present you with a story that rivals, in many cases exceeds anything that single player games can do. So I'm still in Stormblood, so I'm not Stormblood's where everyone else is.
Stormblood's rough, dude. When you get the Shadowbringers, that's when you're gonna be like, oh my god, what? What the hell is happening? This is insane.
I should be in Shadowbringers end of the week. I have one more Wing of Omega left. Then I have the Alliance raid left, and then I have the Trials left, and then it's 4.4 and 4.5, and then Shadowbringers. So should be by the end of the week, either starting Shadowbringers or the week after, we'll be going into Shadowbringers proper. But yeah, I'm open-minded, because at the end of the day, like I said, if this is what they could pull off in the MMO, imagine what the fuck they can pull off in the single player. Also, voice-acted storylines in single-player games is not impossible to have every single thing voice-acted. And, dude, I am so fucking ready for every single quest to be voice-acted, fully dialogue-driven. It's going to be amazing. I'm also very much on board with it.
Yeah, I completely agree. It's gonna be friggin' awesome. But
so talking about story.
Yeah, I was going to segue into that. Talking about story, we were talking just before the podcast about how some stuff was revealed recently because of 9.2.5 and the surprises that it brought. We talked about in the previous podcast how 9.2.5 was able to keep surprises, which I think is a massive win for World of Warcraft. But you wanted to talk about those stories specifically. I haven't really been following them, because, I'd rather experience them in game eventually, which is going to bring me to another point soon. But tell me about those stories then.
All right. So there are many ways to tell stories in video games. The two major ones, though, if you want to sort of start with, there's storytelling, then it branches into two main ways of telling a story. And then from there, it subdivides and sort of borrows from itself. The two main ways of telling a story. The one is what we call world building or world narratives, right? These are basically every single D&D game ever. It's your tabletop video games. It's the games where the onus isn't so much on the dialogue and the narrative. The onus is more on the world, and the world is its own story. The world presents its own story. Very similar to Elden Ring, in a way, right? Elden Ring, the world is the thing that tells the story. There's massive arching narratives. There isn't dialogue-driven narratives. So there isn't necessarily that heavy onus on personal relationships and interpersonal relationships and love affairs and shit like that. It's more alluded to. Oftentimes, if stated explicitly, it will also have a sort of element within the game that is important for this to exist. Look at, for example, Mog, the article we read the other day, right? Mog, this fucked up god that basically just took prisoner a child and wants to make it a child bride. Or actually not even actually a child, but an eternal child because of curses or whatever.
Yeah.
It's an extremely broad story. There's not a lot of word for word, moment to moment storytelling there. It's more when you piece everything together, an image starts to emerge of what this god is and what this god does, right?
Yeah.
That's the idea. So this is what we call world building narratives. And then you have dialogue driven narratives. So this is where there's relationships being formed, there's characters talking, and
Mass Effect, Dragon Age, that type of thing, yeah.
Exactly, yes. World building is still important. There's still an element of it, but more often than not, world building is done through the dialogue, and the dialogue really takes the forefront of everything. Whereas, think of something like Mass Effect. The world is important, but if you were to compare Mass Effect and Elden Ring's worlds to one another, which one do you think is more important? There's a lot more onus put on the Elden Ring one, right? Yeah. Whereas in Mass Effect, its world is oftentimes more alluded to.
Yeah.
Whereas the dialogue is far more important. So these are the two main vehicles through which you tell story. In MMO terms, this is World of Warcraft versus Final Fantasy.
Final Fantasy 14, yeah.
Yeah, World of Warcraft, historically, always been a game that's very big on world building, not so much on the dialogue elements. Dialogue in World of Warcraft is more often two people making monologues at one another. The monologues are sort of loosely connected, but not really, because ultimately all they want to do is say an important thing. And that important thing you need to know. In Final Fantasy, anyone that's ever played it will know, literally the other day, Ruri, I timed my playthrough, and in almost an hour and a half, there wasn't a single time where I was sent to go kill anything.
Yeah.
It was literally run from one NPC to the next and talk. That's it. Just talk. That's what we're doing here.
They're pretty comfortable doing that because the way in which they tell their story is like, well, the Warrior of Light doesn't necessarily need to be butchering things every 10 seconds. Your character has a much more important role than the local dude that's just going around killing stuff.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it also hits the mark, right? Because whenever you are sent to go kill something, you know the thing
It's
that you're
meaningful.
killing is important.
Yeah.
Yeah. They're not just going to ask you willy-nilly to kill 5 of this, 10 of this, 20 of this, just because you have to be busy.
Unless you're doing side quests. In side quests, they will do that, but like in the main story, no, they don't do that.
I mean, a lot of the side quests just do, like the ones that I've seen, the people giving you the side quests don't even necessarily know that you're the warrior.
They don't know who you are.
They just need, they have problems and you can solve their problems for them, right? That's pretty much the only, I get that. And obviously you need to have that. It's an MMO. There's a lot of people that love playing that way in MMOs. But all right, so historically, World of Warcraft world-building narratives, right, and Final Fantasy dialogue narratives. And then I noticed something with the 3 newest cinematics. And it's not that these 3 newest cinematics are the only ones that do it. It's that I went back over the weekend and I watched every single cinematic in the history of World of Warcraft. I watched all of them. And I made note of where things started to shift. And it would appear that around Legion there was a very clear shift in what Blizzard is trying to do. So Blizzard went from world-building cinematics to
the dialogue
stuff.
Yeah.
Very heavy dialogue stuff. So things like Lost Soldier, right? Things like Sylvanas and Saurfang outside, Orgrimmar. These are dialogue-driven, incredibly intricate, important cinematics where most of the action is in the dialogue. The 3 newest cinematics has no action. It's literally just dialogue.
Legion was actually one of the first. They had one of the first cinematics that I felt kind of like emotionally connected to when it came to World of Warcraft, and it was the Death of Varian. Like, I thought it was friggin' awesome. And it really also drove the point home of like Alliance versus Horde. Because me as an Alliance player, I was like, dude, the Horde betrayed us, dude. They friggin' left. They ditched. Like, what the hell? Bunch of cowards, dude, right? And Varian like died so that everybody could get away. And I thought that cinematic was actually amazing. Like, that one Legion cinematic, I think might have been the most meaningful cinematic in most of WoW for me. I mean, obviously there's also Wrathgate, which I think was meaningful for everybody. Wrathgate was awesome, but the Varian cinematic I thought was very special.
But you see, even the Varian one is more a world-building cinematic because it gives you an idea of what the future of World of Warcraft is going to look like. Varian is gone. You almost know that there's going to be turmoil within the Alliance, but you also see the Horde side of that, and there's a lot of turmoil very quickly now on the Horde side. So it gives you a narrative for what the world is going to look like. So it is still a world-building cinematic in and of itself. The best example I have of this is if you compare Old Soldier to Mist of Pandaria cinematic, right? Mist of Pandaria cinematic has the orc and the human fighting.
Yeah.
You have the panda in the middle, sort of showing that the pandas are going to be affected by this fighting between the Horde and the Alliance. And then you have a final cut where it just sort of shows you the world as it opens up, and it's beautiful and it's, peaceful and everything that you would want a tranquil life to consist of. That's it. That's the cinematic. The Dragonfly cinematic, coincidentally, is exactly that. There's little to no dialogue. It's literally just building the world. It's just telling you, hey, here you go. This is the world that you're going to be playing in for the next 2 years. We're not going to tell you anything about the world, but this is what it's going to look like. Whereas you look at these 3 cinematics from 9 to 5, and they are incredibly dialogue-driven with one big issue. Now, I do have a way that I'm building up to this, guys. I'm not just sort of giving you Blizzard is changing. It's clear to me that Blizzard have recognized that Final Fantasy is working a hell of a lot better than WoW. People are a lot more excited for Final Fantasy. People are a lot more happy in Final Fantasy. And I think Blizzard are taking the wrong lessons from Final Fantasy. Insofar as Blizzard is also trying to become a dialogue-driven game. The only difference is, of course, they have to present their dialogue in cinematics. The issue with those cinematics, and the best way I can... Now, obviously, this is if I am correct. If I'm correct, but there is a marked difference between the cinematics from Legion and onwards and all cinematics prior. Prior to Legion, cinematics did not try to dialogue themselves to death. They couldn't give two fucks. Those cinematics were mostly about the world. Even Wrathgate, while it had a lot of talking, the talking was only to explain the incredible power of the Lich King. That was it. It was basically the Lich King making a monologue, and then it was the Forsaken making a monologue. So it set up the world. That's it. Now, my issue with it, before I even go, Barry, can you...
You're so excited about this topic, dude, I can tell.
Yeah. But I want to know from you first. Have you noticed the same trend, or do you think you see something different?
No, I definitely feel like in the past couple of expansions, they have been going more towards the whole dialogue thing, and you can kind of tell with some of the stuff that took place in BFA, where there's like extremely heavy dialogue cutscenes with Jaina and the people of Kultiris and all of that. And I remember when I did that, I was like, oh, this is interesting. It's a little bit different than what I'm used to, but it is interesting. Yeah. But, you know, ultimately what drove me away from BFA wasn't even necessarily the story. It was more so the systems, so whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah, I definitely feel the same, that they tried doing that. But I was under the impression that for Dragonflight, they might potentially be focusing more on the world. But again, I don't know what these cinematics are doing for 925, so...
So I can already tell you, Blizzard made a move about 6, 7, 8 months ago. Terran Gregory moved from the head of the Blizzard Cinematic Department to forming a new department called the World of Warcraft Cinematic Department. So WoW is the only game in Blizzard that has its own cinematic department, which signals to me that they want to have a lot more cinematics in the game. A lot more. So they basically, and the only thing I can think of is they want to turn WoW into Final Fantasy, because Final Fantasy is cinematic after, it's literally a cinematic simulator. You run from quest to quest and you get cinematic after cinematic after cinematic. Of course, their cinematics isn't action, so people don't always think of it as cinematics, but click escape on those dialogue and it asks, do you wish to exit the cutscene, right? Because it is a cutscene. You're watching a cutscene. The cutscene is just dialogue, which is great because that's what we love about the game. Do you believe that could work in World of Warcraft?
Not with its current player base, I don't think, because most of the current player base, I feel like the way in which they play World of Warcraft, like a majority of the players, they just burn through quests. Like we talked about this, a lot of them even use like Zygor or other quest guides to just like expedite their questing process, which is why people were telling me when I played through Shadowlands, there was a lot of people, I made like a video criticizing the leveling experience, and people were like, what are you talking about? This is the best leveling experience we had in years. I was like, wow, if this is the best leveling experience we had in years, your standards are quite low. The leveling in Shadowlands in terms of like what is told to you from a story perspective and the stuff that you experience from the different covenants and whatnot, I thought it was terrible. And it was told out of order, at least for the Bastion Covenant. It was told out of order with the whole... I've talked about this before, Davos switching to evil, and there's no cutscene explaining why Davos is suddenly evil. And then 2 weeks down the line, if you're a Bastion member, you see the cinematic of her becoming evil. There's like, all this stuff is like out of order even. Like, what are you doing with your lives? So, I thought that was terrible. And the fact that a big portion of people told me, no, it was great, it was friggin' amazing, tells me that nobody's really paying that much attention to it to begin with, which doesn't really make a whole lot of sense if they want to double down on that stuff. Now, having said that, I think there is a way in which they could make it work, and that is, like, say you go through a zone, and then at the end of each zone, right, you experience the questing of that zone, and it can't be too complicated. I feel like The story needs to be simple, and I don't think they're going to be able to pull off something like the nuances that you get in 14, because it requires a lot of stuff actually happening in engine, and that is technology that World of Warcraft currently does not have, to the best of my understanding. But I kind of see that if you go through a zone, and then at the end of a zone, for starters, I don't think that the dungeon should be optional, but that's neither here nor there. But at the end of the zone, you do the dungeon, and you do the dungeon after the dungeon, you'd get like a proper cinematic cutscene from this department that you're talking about, and then they will give you like a story dump. I feel like that could work, as in like, instead of having every moment as a cinematic or a cutscene of two characters having a dialogue, you go through your traditional World of Warcraft experience, and then you get to the end, and there's like this one bigger cutscene that really exposes story and the stuff that is happening in that zone. That way, I think it could work. But them trying to go full Final Fantasy XIV is not going to work, because that's just not the fan base that they've cultivated over the years.
Yeah. I will use the following as a good example of this. The most hated part of Shadowlands for almost everyone, universally, and you can do this or know this simply by looking at the amount of people screaming for a skip option to it, is the More intro quest line. Everyone hated it.
I didn't think it was that bad, but yeah, I've heard a lot of people say they hated it.
The More intro quest line is dialogue narrative driven.
Yep.
It is massively, like, that is a Final Fantasy questing experience in World of Warcraft, because a lot of the time you are just watching as things happen. Now, it's not perfect, because in Final Fantasy XIV, you, the character, is very much involved in the story. In World of Warcraft, you're not that much involved, so you're the
champion.
Yeah, you're the champion in name only, right? Until they send you to collect 5 bear asses, and then you're no longer the champion. You're just the fucking errand boy. But you are the champion whenever they address you. But if you look at sort of like Jaina's whole monologue there, she's not really talking at you, or she's not really talking to you. She's speaking at you. She's just speaking around you. And you just have to listen to what the hell she has to say. But it is what Blizzard is trying to do. They want to go more narrative. My reason for opposing this is twofold. Number one, I don't think that even the player base that have left WoW for Final Fantasy would appreciate that in WoW. WoW has its own unique flavor of doing things. It would be like people starting to call for voiced quests in Elden Ring. It would destroy what Elden Ring is. If people started saying, wait, Elden Ring should be more like Witcher 3. It's kind of like, wait, but Elden Ring isn't Witcher 3.
Exactly.
Witcher 3 is Witcher 3. Elden Ring isn't Witcher 3. Like, I heard people saying, oh, they wish Witcher 3's combat was like Elden Ring's. And I'm like, dude, how long do you want the game to be? The story alone is, almost 60 hours? You want to add the combat of Elden Ring to Witcher 3? So what? We're talking about a game that's going to take you 400 or 500 hours to finish, because you get sent out to kill a boss, you die 400 times to the fucking boss before you kill it, go back and then get a massive amount of cutscenes again, just to get sent out to the next boss again. That's not really conducive. The two games can't marry each other. Not in the way that you think they can, because they're focused on different things. They want to be different things. And you can't, like, this is the problem with WoW. Its player base have always accepted that the world is important and the world sort of is the story, right? The dialogue doesn't matter. The moment-to-moment gameplay doesn't really matter. It is all about that overarching narratives, and then most of the story is put in the books. So I said last night to my mods, they should just go back to that. Just do the world, let the world be the story, and then put the whole fucking actual story in the books. And one of my mods came up with
No.
The reason
I just want to point out, I completely disagree with that. Like, the story can't be in the books. Like, it can't be like that anymore.
The reason I said, do that instead, is at least then the story made sense. At least then, once you've read the book, you knew what the story was.
With the Sylvanas nonsense and whatnot, I don't kind of feel like...
So, remember, Blizzard have changed the way they tell the story since Legion. So, everything that's happened since Legion, all of that confusion is due to this, we want to tell the story in the game, right? I mean, they don't tell the story in the game because they're not committing. Blizzard kind of want to be like Final Fantasy, but they also still kind of want to be like the old WoW. So you get this sort of weird... Let me give you a great example of this. In the most recent Sylvanas Anduin cinematic, Anduin exclaims he kind of liked the killing that he did for Zuval. He kind of liked it. Sylvanas just... I think Sylvanas responds with, never confuse choice with force or some shit like that. It's like, wait, what the fuck? If dialogue is what you're going for, the natural next question out of Sylvanas' mouth is something to the effect of, what?
Yeah.
Like, that's literally the follow-up. If someone came to you and they said, oh yeah, last night I was watching someone taking a shit in someone else's mouth and I kind of got aroused by it. The next fucking question out of your mouth is, excuse me? What the fuck do you mean? You don't just go, well, you know.
I wouldn't ask that because I don't kink shame, man. It's like, hey, man, you do you, whatever.
You would still probably, if it was your friend or something, you would probably still ask, wait, what do you
like,
mean?
Dude, are you crazy? What's wrong with you?
Maybe you wouldn't judge them, but you would be like, what do you mean?
You're
crazy.
Just,
you want some... Like, give me some information here that just allows me to make some sense of the world.
I'm not sure if I would want to probe any further into that specific topic, to be honest. It's like, I'm not sure I want to know more. But I would want to know more about the killing. It's like my friend came back to me and said, you know what, last night I killed somebody and I kind of liked it. I'd be like, really? Tell me more.
Exactly, right?
Now that'd be interesting.
Because that's what a natural dialogue looks like.
Yeah.
A natural dialogue is inquisitive. There are moments of inquiry that needs to happen. World of Warcraft's dialogue isn't really dialogue ever. It's monologue.
It's expositional.
Yes, exactly. It's all exposés. They literally, I have a bunch of shit that I want to say. You have a bunch of shit that you want to say. We're going to say our shit. And I'm not really going to react to the things that you say unless, of course, insofar as my reaction allows me to say the thing that I wanted to say, right? It's a very weird way of conversing, and a lot of things get lost in translation here, because after that cinematic, there is a ton of questions that I have that I feel should have been answered in that cinematic, or at least should have been alluded to in the cinematic, to the point where I'm sick and tired of walking out of World of Warcraft cinematics where it's clear they wanted to make a point and everyone walks away from it having a different fucking opinion on what the point was. Because at that point, what are you doing? You're wasting everyone's time. Either don't make a point with your cinematic so everyone can speculate on what the point actually was, or if you're gonna make a point in the cinematic, fucking make a point. And let everyone know this is the point of the cinematic, right? So Blizzard they haven't made their choice insofar as we want to be Final Fantasy, which would turn the Sylvanas Anduin cinematic from 2 minutes and 30 seconds into about 11, 12, 13, almost 15 minutes. So it will be a long cinematic because it's going to be a conversation. It's going to be talking and actually discussing as they go through it. Or go back to the World of Warcraft cinematics. I mean, it stays at 2 minutes 33, but it's a lot more vague. There's a lot more action. There's a lot more showing rather than telling. And at the end of it, we all sit there and we speculated what this could possibly mean for the game. And that's why I said last night, just go back to the old way of doing things. Have the world be the world and put the story in the fucking books. Because at least, I wasn't confused about the story of Cataclysm. The books explained the story of Cataclysm perfectly.
I don't want the story in the books anymore. Like, I feel like anything that goes to a book should add to the game and not remove from the game, because essentially, as far as I'm concerned, the books remove the story from the game because you need the books to understand the story, and that is a problem. Like, you can't have that in the video game as far as I'm concerned, because it just needs to be told in the game. They need to figure out a way to do it. Maybe simplify the story instead of like trying to, play off some like 4D Zuval's been planning this all along. It was this 4D chess play. Instead of having that, have something a little bit more simple. Like, hey, Zoval's just the bad guy. He's trying to do bad things and we have to stop him. Otherwise, bad things are going to happen. Whatever, right? Just have it more simple like that and in a way that people can understand it. And then in books, you can have more complex, more nuanced stories, but they need to be alternate stories that aren't required for you to understand what the main plot of the expansion was.
So just to be clear, in a perfect world, I don't want the story in the books. But if it leads to me actually being able to fucking understand what the story is, rather give it to me in the books if you can't figure out how to do it in the game. Because clearly you can't figure out how to do it in the game. And then one of my mods actually came up with the perfect solution. Why is Blizzard incapable of doing it in the game? Well, because they know that their player base wouldn't be okay with a 15-minute cutscene of two people just talking to each other. People will lose their fucking brains.
I'd be fine with it so long as, like I said, imagine if it was at the end of a zone, right? You just do a zone and at the very end of it, or maybe not even at the end, because like I can't remember exactly how many hours it is between each of the zones, but let's say maybe there's one cinematic in the middle of the zone that sets you up for the rest of the zone and then another cinematic at the end of the zone. I'd be fine with those being 15 minutes long. I don't care. And anybody who doesn't like it can skip it.
Yeah, but the thing is, of course, if you're going to do that, first and foremost, you could make it skippable, which will take care of some of the problems there. Yeah. But at the same time, there's so many small stories that is important to the overall understanding of a story like World of Warcraft that you can't really do it in the middle and then at the end. So my mod came up with the perfect solution. A couple of years ago, in Legion, Blizzard came up with this new floating head thing, right? Where you run away and the floating head tells you stuff. Like the floating head would pop up.
I kind of feel like I saw that in Warlords, right?
I'm trying to remember. I want to say Legion was the first time, because I remember Illidan popping up and giving you a quest.
I remember Khadgar's head following my ass around during the intro to Warlords, right? Was that not a thing?
May have been. But I think we can agree it wasn't prior to Warlords of Draenor. Like, this was never a thing in WoW. So. And then Blizzard made a big deal. I want to say Legion, you could say Warlords, and both could be correct, I think. Yeah. Well, not both could be correct, but you could be right. Anyways, Blizzard made a big deal of this. Well, why not utilize that to the best possible way? Let people pick up their quest, and then there's a choice. I want to get the story the way that it was meant to be get. So I'm going to stand there. I'm going to watch the dialogue between these characters happen. And it's going to take 10, 15 minutes, and that's fine. I'll just stand there. Or I fly off to go do the quest. And while I'm off flying to do the quest, the talking heads are having their dialogue on my screen. So while I'm killing these things, I am listening to these people talking and having their conversation. So the story is still given to me while I'm doing other things. So I'm not slowing myself down, having to sit there and watch this fucking cinematic while, I can't kill anything because they're having their discussion now before I get to go kill something. That way, you don't need to have like a massive story dump at the end of the zone or in the middle and then at the end. You can have the story dump whilst people are actually capable of playing the game.
The thing is, I kind of feel like the type of person that would want to experience that story dump with the two talking heads while they're actually doing combat is probably the same person that's like sitting in Discord with their friends and they're all just like chilling and not actually paying attention to it. So I think a more elegant solution would just be a journal. There's like you just have a journal, and the story is told to you in the journal. It's just like written there. And if at any point it's like, oh, I don't remember this part, there's just like a play button there. It's like, oh, here's the cinematic that you skipped previously, and you can watch it now if you want to. So it's like if you want to rush through it, you can. You just have a journal that keeps tab on the major events of an expansion, and this would actually be
idea as well.
This would actually be something that they could implement retroactively. So they could like give you a journal of the events that happen in vanilla, the events that happen in the Burning Crusade, and someone who's actually really into the lore, because look, I even want to talk about this later because, you know, I've been thinking about WoW and returning players and stuff like that, right? But somebody who is maybe just like dropped in the middle of the current expansion, they're going to be so confused because they're going to be rushed through Chromie time, which, you know, which expansion do you want to play? It's basically like, here's a theme park ride. Which theme park ride do you want to go on? You want to go on the Big Dragon and Cataclysm theme park ride? You want to go on the alternate reality in the future theme park ride of Warlords of Draenor? Which one of the theme park rides you want to go on? And then you get to level 58 and she's like, okay, I'm going to kick you out and you're going to go to the pirate special ride now. And it's really weird. And this way, a player could look at a journal and just have like, oh, here's how things took place. Anybody that cared, because I don't know if you know, there's this guy, I forget his name, but there's this guy who went into World of Warcraft. He's a Final Fantasy 14 player, and he went into World of Warcraft to kind of like give it a chance. And he goes in there and he's like, dude, I don't understand a damn thing that's happening.
Dude,
I went through this Chromie time. Yeah. So you know what I'm talking about. So it's like the new player experience is completely terrible. Like us veterans that have been through it, we know what each of the things are. But somebody who's going through it fresh, it's almost impossible. And that's one of the things that World of Warcraft needs even more than having veterans return. Because I feel like having veteran players return to the game, I think would be really cool. But I think what it needs even more is new blood, and not just new blood that is like zoom, let's go through the thing and get to the end game and do the raid. They need new blood that is actually interested in figuring out what is the story of this game? How do things begin? Yeah. And the journal aspect of it would fix every single aspect of the storytelling in World of Warcraft. And here's the thing. While you're doing the journal, you can even retcon the bits and bobs that you didn't like, because now there will be like a goddamn record in there. And there's like, listen, guys, this is what officially happened. And it's like, I understand not everybody wants to deal with retcons, but if it would mean having a solid foundation for moving forward, this would be like a goddamn miracle.
But you see, I think you can have all of those things, right? I think you can have the actual cinematic cutscene play for people that want to stand there and RP like real life watching these people discuss. You can have the talking heads for people who, you know, they want to continue killing and do the quest, but they also kind of want to get the story. And then you can have those people that click off both of them. I don't want the fucking talking heads. I couldn't give two fucks about the cutscene. I just want to go, right? Go. So I have my add-on set to skip everything, like just exit everything, but it's all recorded in the journal. So if I want to go back after I've leveled and go look at the journal and find all of those cutscenes still there in written form, but also with a play button. So it is written down what happened there, sort of a brief synopsis. And then there's a play button if you want to see the whole conversation as it took place. It's absolutely there for you. I think the journal is actually one of the greatest ideas I've ever heard in WoW, and I'm probably going to borrow that for a video
and run with it
because you can make the journal the reason for people wanting to go back and doing every single one of the expansions.
Exactly.
Because
Go
people
ahead.
want to fill out the journal, right?
Exactly.
You want the journal to be full.
Wouldn't that be awesome?
Exactly. You're going to go back and you're going to do every quest in vanilla, right?
Not every quest, like every story relevant quest. Like you don't want, let's go do the beer boasted boar ribs or whatever the hell it was.
Yeah.
for the dwarf quest.
I would argue that even those should have a journal entry for those that want it. So do that as an extra thing. So there's an achievement for filling up the whole journal with the entire story.
Yeah.
And then maybe a separate achievement for
just this
actually 100%ing the entire journal. So you have done every single quest in World of Warcraft. You know the entire story and all of the side stories for every single thing in World of Warcraft as it pertains to the journal. I think it gives an amazing reason for people to actually go back. I would have as part of that journal a kind of compendium, if you will, where so for example, you have Anduin's picture there, and then it tells people Anduin is the king of Stormwind. His father was Varian Rain, his mother, his notable acts. Then you have Jaina and
then
her
it
notable acts.
It would fill up as you would learn more about the story. It would fill up additional information. Yeah. I think that would be awesome because like I've even been thinking about it from the perspective of like I've played multiple characters over the years, right? But my favorite character has always been my main dwarf warrior. And it's like, I don't remember everything that I've done in my Dwarf Warrior, and it's not like there's a record in the game of the stuff that I've done or the things that I've seen. Yeah. I'm probably missing tons of stories because I would level up to max and then I would do raids because that's what you do back in the day, right? And it would be good to have a reason to go back and potentially even if at that point they could figure out a syncing system, that'd be awesome so that I wouldn't go in there and like, oh, I charged and I obliterated like 50 mobs. Oops. It's like you just charge in Whirlwind and you obliterate everything and there's nothing left in vanilla content. And if you could just sink yourself down, then it'd be like, I actually can do a little bit of, it's still not going to be like challenging or anything like you're fighting max level mobs, but it's still, you get in there and you're like, oh, now I can at least do a little bit of my rotation, do a couple of abilities before they just explode, and it still feels good. Like maybe increase your crit rate or something, but reduce your damage so that, it feels good. Look at all these crits popping up. It's great because I'm high level and whatnot, but yeah.
Yeah. I would even have the raids. So when a raid opened up and when you cleared it for the first time, it's recorded in your journal.
Yeah,
it's your journal. It's your character's journal. They keep a journal. So you do it very similar to Red Dead Redemption's journal, right? Where Arthur every single thing that happens would be written down in his journal. And you can go back and you can read the journal of Arthur Morgan. So you do it similar to that. And then it also even tells you how many times you've run a specific raid. So for those people that is hunting for Invincible, they can see that they have done 12,985 fucking runs of ICC, and the mount still has not dropped for them.
It's actually surprising. It's actually surprising that is not a thing in World of Warcraft. Because, like for instance, in Monster Hunter Rise, there's a feature that they've added, and I think that they've always kept track of these statistics throughout most of Monster Hunter games. But like in recent entries, like in World and Rise, there's just a feature called Hunter's Notes. And what happens is whenever you kill a monster, it'll tell you how big it was because the monsters can vary in size, even the same monster. It'll tell you how many times you killed it, how many times you captured it. I will tell you, like, after you killed it a certain amount of times, it'll tell you its weakness, like this monster's weak to fire. You might want to take a fire weapon. It'll tell you, like, additional information, like what does this monster drop in loot and whatnot. But they keep track of all of those things in a journal for essentially what is a game that doesn't even have the longevity of something like World of Warcraft, and they have the foresight to look at something like a journal. So I kind of feel like that is definitely overdue and well.
Oh, yeah. I think it solves the issues that Blizzard is currently having, because it's clear story is becoming more and more important to Blizzard. The only way so far Blizzard have been successful in telling stories is in the olden days where the game wouldn't give you much story. It does give you story, but it gives you a very sort of bland, easily followable, very easy to conclude story. But then if you really want to dive into it, the books is where the real story takes place, right? And at least that worked. Now, to be fair, World of Warcraft has never been a game that gives you all the answers. It's one of the reasons it's one of the most speculated games in the world. I mean, more people speculate about World of Warcraft than most other games, I feel, with the exception of probably something like Lord of the Rings and H.P. Lovecraft, where those universes are so large that there is just purely so much room for speculation that you can't help it. But in terms of, this is what Blizzard have always been. This is what WoW has always been. Now, it seems like Blizzard wants to not be that anymore. They want to be more Final Fantasy, but their player base is limiting their ability to be Final Fantasy. So they're sort of coming up with this half-ass to both sides approach, right? Where we're not fully dialogue-driven, but we are kind of dialogue-driven. The dialogue doesn't really drive because the dialogue isn't really given the ability to drive. But we're also no longer world building but we are world building, but we're not world building because if we want to be world building, we can't be dialogue. Yeah, so it's sort of like a thing of choose a fucking side, Blizzard. Yeah. Do you want to be a world building game,
choose a lane,
or do you want to be a dialogue driven game? Otherwise, you have to do what Final Fantasy does, right? Which is both ARR and Stormblood, boring by most players' accounts, mainly because they were world building expansions. And then you have the great expansions that everyone in Final Fantasy love, which is dialogue-driven expansions.
Heavensward and Shadowbringers,
Yeah. You have Heavensward, you have Shadowbringers, you have Endwalker, which is extremely dialogue-driven, microcosm stories. But that's what people really love. Stormblood ARR was the reason those stories could happen because they built the world for those stories to actually happen in. Unless Blizzard wants to do that, in which case, sure, but then you have to accept the fact that
you're going to alienate a big portion of your player base for sure.
Exactly, in one way or the other. So one expansion is going to alienate all of the story guys because there's going to be more world building. The other side is going to alienate all of the world guys because, well, the story is the main attraction here. Yeah. Or you do what we just said there, which is make the cutscenes completely optional, have the talking head for those that do want the story, but they also want to continue questing as fast as possible, and then a journal system for those that just want to fucking power through. They don't give a fuck about any of this. They'll get it in the journal later. I feel like that's a really good idea.
So my biggest concern about the whole talking heads, journal, and cinematic would be the development cost of all of those things. Because, like, I kind of feel like you can't have all three of them without incurring massive. Because I don't know, it's just a vibe that I get that you kind of would have to pick. Like, if you'd have to pick, which one would you choose? Like, let's say you could have two. You could have talking heads and journal, or you can have cinematic and journal, or you can have cinematic and talking heads. Because let's say that, obviously there's going to be a cost of development for all of these things. Which ones would you pick?
I would definitely go for talking heads and journal.
I'd go cinematic and journal.
See, the problem with cinematic is if World of Warcraft's player base was the Final Fantasy player base, I would probably go the same way. But because the World of Warcraft cinematic or World of Warcraft player base isn't big on in-game forced cutscenes, and when I say forced, I don't mean things that you can't quit. It's just that you go into a cutscene and then you have to quit it. Most people just already have an add-on that cancels it immediately. I know because I have that add-on. I turn it off for my first playthrough, and then it goes on for every other playthrough.
Yeah, of course.
Because as soon as I'm done reading all the quests, I don't want to read it again. I don't want to see it again. So any cinematic that pops up is just insta-cancelled. And I do this because it takes too fucking long. I know that the game starts at max level, and that's where I want to get to as soon as possible. I feel like you're going to waste a lot of cinematics because a lot of the cinematics, the majority of players aren't going to watch. So it's sort of like putting a lot of resources into, well, basically a bucket that is rarely going to be used. Whereas if it's a talking head, a lot of players, I feel like, would care about the story if the story was sort of delivered to them in an audiobook fashion, right? Which is what the talking heads would accomplish. Because it's kind of like listening to the audiobook while questing. Because you hear them speaking, and yeah, there's a talking head, you're on the corner of your screen, but doesn't really affect you because you're just out here killing stuff at the end of the day.
I don't know. Like I said, the thing about it to me is that the way I just don't want to have them go back to the whole thing about, okay, so people don't care about the story, so we're not going to focus too much on the story in game. Like, I feel that there should be a certain level of focus. It should just be optional. So it's like the way that I look at the talking heads is I'm imagining myself going through like a quest, right? I'm doing a quest, and then it's like, okay, cinematic moment, here's the two talking heads, and I'm off killing stuff. I'm not going to be able to focus on the dialogue. I'd probably just end up sitting there listening to the two talking heads like I'm watching the cutscene. Because I actually do care about the story somewhat. Like, I actually read some of the quests in Shadowlands until I realized that it was friggin' pointless, most of them, because it's just like, oh man, there's this thing, and then there's that thing. And then suddenly, oh, by the way, here's Uther, and I'm like, wait, what? That came out of nowhere. What? Excuse me?
Yeah.
So, I don't know. Maybe I'm somewhat, maybe now my look on things might have been changed because I've played so much Final Fantasy XIV that I want to give even more emphasis to the story, which is why I probably read as many quests as I did during Shadowlands, and then I eventually stopped reading them again because it was pointless drivel. But, it's just, again, I don't want World of Warcraft to be in a position where it's like, okay, every quest is major story and all of this stuff, but I want there to, when there are cutscenes, they're significant. And if you think about it like that, with the player base, and this is actually something that you guys that are watching this on YouTube, you can leave us a comment or something. Is this something that, say, one of you guys that is more focused on the actual gameplay, would you care? Like, let's say, per zone, 2 15-minute cinematics. So that's about half an hour of cinematics per zone. Is that really a big deal? And it's like, those are the only moments where you really need to pay attention. Like, the quest is whatever. You don't have to read the quest text if you don't want to. As a matter of fact, at that point, Blizzard doesn't even have to focus as much at dropping like lore hints in the quest text because they know that, okay, at this point, big cinematic comes in, we do the lore dump, and we actually just, produce a proper 15-minute cinematic or whatever time it happens to be. And then at the end of the zone, big dungeon, big confrontation, boom, boom, and another big cinematic to cap things off and send you off into the next zone. Like, I think that would be fine. And as a matter of fact, I think that'd be a massive improvement because that way you don't even have to think about the quest that you're doing. There's like, oh yeah, there's something random happening over here, whatever, get this, kill 10 kobolds, who cares? And it's like, this is why we killed those 10 kobolds. It is explained. I think that would actually make sense.
I think anything will be a big improvement on whatever the fuck Blizzard is doing right now, right? So anything will be an improvement on Blizzard right now. But I feel like the talking head thing accomplishes both. Because if you just want to, because I'll be like you. I would sit there and I would watch the talking heads until they're finished. And then, but that's the nice thing about it, is that you can. If that's what you want to do, you sit there and you watch the talking heads, and then when you're done, you go do your quest. Whereas if it's a cinematic, it's a cinematic. So either you stay there and watch the whole cinematic, or you click it off and then you watch it later.
But look at it like this as well, right? You got the talking heads, and we're talking about potential duration of 15 minutes for the cinematic, right? So talking about 15 minutes of talking heads. How many quests are going to be picking up while these talking heads are talking? So are the talking heads going to be talking, and I'm going to be picking up a quest? It would have to be like a scenario, right?
No, what I'm referring to is, instead of having something like a 15-minute cutscene, it would be it would be a more cutscenes, so more talking head scenes, but shorter duration. So let's say anywhere from 3 to 5 minutes per talking head duration.
I could not. Now I definitely disagree with you. You want to know why?
Why?
Because that requires more attention from the players. Instead of me having to focus to sit down for like 15 minutes, you're going to ask me, okay, so let's say you were saying about 3 minutes of talking heads, right? So instead of me having one instance of having to focus for 15 minutes, I'm going to have 5 instances where I have to focus for 3 minutes at a time.
Yeah. But remember, if you care about the story, it's not going to be a problem. So why do Final Fantasy players not care about exactly that? Because that's what Final Fantasy is, right? It's, I go from one place to the next, then I get 5 to 10 minutes of quest cutscene, of dialogue cutscene, then I finish that, get a new quest, go to the next place, and get 5 to 10 minutes of in-game cutscene where it's dialogue. Why do Final Fantasy players not mind this? Well, because they actually care about the dialogue that is delivered. So for those who do care about the story, they're going to find it incredibly fun that there is some dialogue finally. And maybe you can even start including the player in this, where even while you're watching this talking head cutscene, they ask you a question and you have an answer that you have to give, Similar to what you have in Final Fantasy, where the answer doesn't really matter.
Yeah, it doesn't really matter. It's an expression.
The answer is there. Yeah. The answer is there to include you in some way, shape, or form. But ultimately, it gives you a lot more involvement in the story, and you can see the story play out because there is dialogue happening. And yes, it is talking heads on your screen, so you can continue just questing. But at the end of the day, it's if you care about the story, you're going to care about it. If you don't care about the story, you're just going to click it off. You're just going to be like, "Fuck this talking head."
But I think we're talking in circles around that. So you guys in the comments, let us know which one did you prefer: talking heads, actual cutscene for 15 minutes, and how do you feel about the journal idea? Like the journal idea, I personally I think that'd be
I think we both love the journal idea. We just have a different of opinion of how things are added to the journal. So I would love to know what people think of that.
Yeah, that'd be interesting. Now, I'm curious about one thing. So, you haven't been playing World of Warcraft, and I haven't been playing World of Warcraft. You've been following it even closer than I have. I follow it every now and then, but the podcast is actually the perfect way of me keeping up with it because you're keeping up with it. But I'm actually curious of what are your plans in terms of potentially returning? Because are you going to play Dragonflight?
Yeah. I've been thinking of re-subbing for 925, just to give it the old college try,
Yeah.
Just to see what it's like, because a lot of people actually say that it's pretty good, and I see the opportunity to have some content there. So I have been thinking of going back for 925 because there are things that I love about WoW, WoW has its own charm that Final Fantasy just does not have. Final Fantasy has its charms that WoW doesn't have. But if you want to talk about, and this is going to sound as if I'm criticizing World of Warcraft, and I really am not. But if you want something that is the perfect second monitor content, where you can basically turn off your brain and just do things, WoW is the king of that. There is no game better than that. Because there's so much that you can just do to keep yourself busy, dailies, world quest grinds. And if they're fun, they're really fun. And, going around and killing rares and stuff like that. It's a fun gameplay loop that
it's why it's one of the reasons it's one of the reasons why World of Warcraft does much better in terms of streaming than Final Fantasy 14 is 100% because if you are watching a Final Fantasy 14 stream, the streamer has to be concentrated on the story. The audience also has to be concentrated on the story. And, there's not as much room for interacting with people because let me interact with my chat and completely interrupt the flow of this cutscene that I'm voice acting right now, right? It's kind of hard. It's a lot harder to stream Final Fantasy 14 than World of Warcraft. World of Warcraft is like, I'm just going to go over here, do a couple of world quests, and we can all just shoot the shit while I'm doing that. And there are activities where you can do that in 14, like Eureka, Bosja. You can just go in there and start murdering things and it's whatever. Or you can go do your daily roulettes of trials and dungeons and whatnot. There are some things, but I feel like you need to focus more. And WoW, you don't have to focus nearly as much in order to do stuff, which is why it's good second screen content, like you said.
I think the other thing, and this is sort of something that wouldn't affect the viewers at all, but it is something that's important to the creators. The Final Fantasy 14, as a game, it's one of the, I feel, worst games to try and build a community on. Because the majority of the FF14 community care only until you're done with MSQ. As soon as you've done first reactions to the MSQ, most of those viewers leave to go watch someone else get their first reactions to the MSQ. Because that's all they're there for. They want to see the reactions to the MSQ.
It's not just that, but there is a large portion of the community that is like that, yeah.
Yeah. Whereas, because Final Fantasy is less about the personality of the streamer and more about the content. Because it is such a good fucking game, right?
Yeah.
And in many ways, it is sort of the same reason why a lot of people watch Elden Ring players. And why a lot of people still watch Dark Souls players, because they want to see people fail on those bosses because it's hard. And it's funny. It's funny to see the reactions as they fail. Will most of the players stick around at the end of that? That depends on your personality.
That depends on the personality, yeah.
Yeah, if you have a brilliant personality, some may stick around, but a lot will leave to go watch the next first playthrough of Elden Ring, of Dark Souls. Whereas a game like World of Warcraft, because it is so much more boring, a lot of people watch.
I'm laughing, but you're right. I'm laughing, but you're, because I mean, let's face it, like, who the fuck cares about whatever gameplay Asmongold is showing when he's going for his fucking 5,000th sword run? Like, nobody cares about him fucking butchering those Mogu Shan or whatever the fuck. Nobody cares.
No,
they're just there to see him fail at getting the sword for the 5,000th time.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of the reasons. Just that a lot of people get frustrated with me in my playthroughs of Final Fantasy XIV. And I constantly have to make this point to some of my viewers, because I do have viewers that come into every single stream being like, are you going to play Final Fantasy XIV today? And whenever I go no, they go, oh, I'll be back tomorrow then, right? And I say a lot. It's about 3 viewers that do that. And I've had to say it multiple times now. Guys, I am not a gameplay streamer. It's not
that's
what I
me.
do.
I'm the gameplay streamer.
Yeah, I don't gameplay at all. I just chat. It's where I do I would say 80% of my streams is just chatting streams, and about 20% is actual gameplay streams. Even when I'm playing Final Fantasy, we'll do like maybe one quest, then we'll talk for almost an hour about either the game or bullshit, and then we'll do another quest, and then we'll talk for about an hour about bullshit. That's what I do. I stream because of chat. I don't, like, if I want to play video games, I'll play them on my fucking own, right? It would be more fun for me to just sit there and play the game and get immersed than it would be to stream it.
I love sharing gameplay with people. Like, I also like chatting as well. Like, I also do the chatting thing. But, like, I also love having gameplay. And if you have a game where you can do both, I kind of feel like that to me is ideal, which is one of the reasons why I like Monster Hunter as much, because you just get to a point in that game where it's, for starters, it's never really about the story when it comes to Monster Hunter. It's about the gameplay. But you get to a point where you can kind of just like, okay, I'm grinding to craft this thing or grinding to craft that thing. It's just like, yeah, I'm going to go kill like 10 of this monster. And you're just kind of like on autopilot and you can answer people's questions and whatnot. It's pretty cool.
Yeah. I think for me, like I said, main thing for me is just chatting. So games that I really enjoy streaming is almost always games like recently played The Lost Spell a little on stream, because there's no story really. It is just
I don't even know what that game is. Oh, it's Tower Defense. Okay.
It's Tower Defense, but it's not Tower Defense because your towers are actual champions. You have 3 champions, and you have to fend off these zombie monster things from attacking your base.
Get your Arclight Rumble fix, man. It's like some.
I definitely wouldn't fucking play that. But it's fun because you can basically take your time. You don't have to continuously play. It's a turn-based game, so whatever.
Those are good. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, in Final Fantasy, I turn Final Fantasy into a just chatting stream by not allowing the story to be the main focus.
Yeah.
The story is there, and we are experiencing it, but I'm there for chat. I'm there because I want to hang out with chat. Whereas
But yeah,
WoW and games like that is better at that.
Yeah, World of Warcraft is definitely better second screen monitor, which makes perfect sense. Which, like I said, that's why World of Warcraft is more successful when it comes to streaming. There's also the fact that it came first, but still, that's not the only reason.
I feel like even if it came second, Final Fantasy is just not a good stream game. I think Final Fantasy has a much stronger YouTube following. Like, I think Final Fantasy does have a very strong YouTube following. But I don't think it has, because if you look at Final Fantasy content creators, they get hundreds of thousands of views every single day on Final Fantasy, but it does not translate to the streams. The biggest Final Fantasy streamers, if you exclude people like Preach and Asmongold and Zepla to some extent.
You can't exclude Zepla if you're talking about the biggest Final Fantasy XIV content
I feel
creators.
Like Zepla, again, is very personality-based, right? People follow I follow Zepla for her personality. She's just a really funny girl to watch, like a funny content creator to watch. She has her own way of doing things. She's like the female Asmongold almost.
I'll never forgive Zepla, dude.
Why is that?
She came to Portugal and I didn't get to meet her. I'll never forgive her for that.
Oh, shit.
No, she came to Portugal when the Ukraine situation flared up, which was pretty messed up, but yeah.
Is she still there, or?
No, I think she's left. She went to France, I think, something like that. She's been hopping around.
I thought she was American, just by the way.
She is American.
Then what the hell is she doing in Europe?
She liked Ukraine. Like, that's it.
Wow.
That's the story. She liked Ukraine, so she went to live in Ukraine.
She could just fly back to America, though. Although
she could, but she doesn't. It's not her home. That's the thing. Her home is Ukraine. She still looks at it like that. But either way, that's like
to each their own. You know.
But
I just thought, like, I genuinely thought she was American, and then
and she is.
She acted as if she is actually European because she kept looking for places to move to in Europe, and I was sort of like, because if she was American, she would just fly back home.
She can just fly back home. She doesn't want to. That's the thing. Her home
more power to her.
Her home is in
Ukraine,
which is
more power to her. It is what it is. I was confused by it. But outside of Preach, Zepla, and Asmongold, the average Final Fantasy successful streamer will have between 1,000 and 1,500 viewers. That's it. That's it. You compare that to World of Warcraft at its peak.
I think you're exaggerating there. Well, I guess no. I still think you're exaggerating. I think it's significantly lower than that.
So the reason I said average successful streamer is because there's about. So I can say this because I am usually in that portion. I'm almost every single time I play Final Fantasy, I'm in the top 3 rows of the Final Fantasy category, right? Every single time. And the only people that is above me are people with 1,000 viewers. I have about 200, 250 viewers every single time. There's such a large drop. It goes from 1,000, 1,000, like the first row and a half, and then massive drop down to like 300, and then 200, and then from 200 again massive drop to like 50.
Yeah.
Right? So there is a handful of successful Final Fantasy streamers, of which Pint is one, and even Pint doesn't get 10,000, 20,000, 30,000 viewers. The vast majority is on that sort of 1,000, maybe 1,500 viewership. Even Pyromancer, went from having 9,000 viewers on average in his stream. He's now getting maybe, like, every single time I see him stream, it's about 700, 800 viewers.
Yeah.
Right? That's in his stream still. So it is sort of like this, and it's not something I think he did. I know a lot of people want to blame him for losing a bunch of his viewers. I don't even think that's the case. I think it is just Final Fantasy viewers care very much about the MSQ, but once you're done with the MSQ, you have to do something very special to keep those people that have come for the MSQ. Otherwise, they're going to leave and go watch someone else do the first time playthrough, because that's actually why they joined. And I have a couple that I converted, but a lot I didn't.
That's the thing about 14. 14 is a very seasonal game, which I actually think it's healthy in a lot of ways. It's a very seasonal game. It's like, oh, there's new content. Let's check out what the new content is, and then let's take a break. It's a good and healthy thing, as opposed to trying to keep players like hooked nonstop. Like I
absolutely agree with you.
This other game that I'm currently playing that is trying to keep players hooked on it nonstop.
We actually have to play. We have to talk about that. That's like a very important fucking game to talk about,
dude. Oh my god, it is so incredibly disgusting. And I'm putting myself through this. A lot of people even ask me, Rurikhan, why are you playing this game? And again, I have a banner on top. Don't spend money on this. And people ask me, why are you still playing it? And I'm just like, it's because I need to know how bad it is before I do my criticism on it. Because there's a lot of people criticizing Diablo Immortal right now. These are people that have played for like 1 or 2 hours. They'll shit all over the game. And it's like,
I'm shitting all over it. I have not even done a second.
That's good. Yeah, it's not like it doesn't deserve it. But, there's going to be people that will be playing the game and will be having fun. And they'll be like, oh, come on, dude, you played like 2 hours or something, right? And that's it. Yeah. And they're not going to take the opinion seriously. So whenever I put out my next Diablo video, I don't know how many hours I have into the game. I'm currently level 52 or 53 or something like that. I haven't spent a dime. So it's like the full free-to-play experience, and I'm not going to spend a dime because it's bullshit. And that's the reason why I'm putting myself through it. I'm putting myself through it so that other people don't have to put themselves through it. And one of the things that I will say is that I hear a lot of people say like, oh, it's a shame because there's actually a really good Diablo game in there. And here's what I got to say to that. No, there's not. The fuck are you talking about? There's a good Diablo game in there. There's Diablo 3 Lite. That's what that thing is. Yeah. It's Diablo 3 Lite. Not even. I think Diablo 3 Lite could actually be better than that. Like, it's nothing special. Yeah. Like, I'm playing the Crusader, and my gameplay experience is I spam 4 buttons and I left click. That's it. Yeah. That's the whole gameplay. And people are like talking about like, oh man, Diablo Immortal gameplay is actually really good. It's a shame that there's all this monetization. It's like, no, it's actually not that great. Like, you remember in the last podcast, I say, I'd actually pay some money for this game if they were doing a proper business model. Like, I'd buy the game. It's like, now that I've played more of it, no, I fucking wouldn't. It's a terrible video game. Like, I'm sorry, dude. Like, I know I'm going to burst a lot of bubbles. There's going to be a lot of people are going to be upset. But, like, there's nothing innovative in this game at all. There's nothing here that Diablo 3 hasn't done better. Nothing. Yeah.
Jesus
Christ.
So, for those of you that don't, I refuse to play it just because I have a straight up ban on all things mobile on my.
It's very wise.
In my life. I refuse to play mobile games. And before you go, oh, but it's on PC too, it's a straight up port for mobile.
Yeah, let me tell you about that. It is so bad that it's like, for starters, I think that the best experience. I think the best experience is probably going to be if you're able to get a controller set up to work on it. And I say this because my controller setup does not work. I don't know why. I've heard from a lot of people like, oh no, my controller works fine, blah, blah, blah. The way that I do control setup, by the way, is I have an 8-bit DOE and I connect the DualShock 4 to it. Does not work. Has massive input lag. And before people say, oh, that's a rinky-dinky 8-bit DOE DualShock 4. This is how I play. This is how I raid Savage Final Fantasy 14 is with this 8-bit DOE DualShock 4, okay? This is how I play Monster Hunter Rise on the hardest monsters is with this setup, and it works fine. Yeah. Does not work for Diablo Immortal for some reason, has massive input lag, literally unplayable. So I have to use mouse and keyboard. And here's the thing about mouse and keyboard. Because this is a mobile game, it is terrible. Like, I don't know how people even play this and they're telling me, oh, it's a fantastic Diablo experience. What the fuck are you talking? I can barely dodge shit that, that is telegraphed on screen because, like, I'm left clicking and I'm clicking monsters, then I have to right click, then I get body blocked, and then shit just explodes in my face. Not that it matters because, like, I can just sit in every AoE the game throws at me and not die anyway, so who gives a fuck? Because this is developed for mobile, so it doesn't take any fucking skill to play to begin with, so it's whatever. But, like, seriously, it is not that great of an experience as everybody is making it out to be, because I've seen so many people just be like, oh my God, there's actually a really good Diablo game in here. And I'm like, what are you talking about? No, there isn't. There isn't.
I think the reason people are saying there's actually a good mobile or Diablo experience in there is it makes the criticisms of the cash shop more legitimate. Because you are effectively saying you could have been so good if you didn't have all this monetization, which I'll be honest, I watched some gameplay. I watched Asmongold play it, and there was nothing in me that got drawn to this at all. And this comes from someone that loves Diablo.
Yeah.
I'm a huge Diablo fan. I'm not a fan of the Greater Rift system at the end, but for the questing and stuff like that, I think Diablo has always been really cool. It's a nice story to go through. I don't like the sort of cartoony, light view of Diablo. Diablo is supposed to be an incredibly dark, fucked up universe, and it doesn't look dark and fucked up to me.
I don't necessarily subscribe to that too much, because, like, if you look, for instance, at Diablo 2, when you're in Act 2, it's a very colorful game. Act 2 in Diablo 2 is extremely colorful. There's a contrast and a vibrancy of colors. Because, like, one of the few things that I actually do like about Immortal is the art. The art of Diablo, because I like the art of Diablo 3, I like the art of Diablo 2, I like the art of Diablo 1, I like all of the Diablo arts. I understand that not everybody's going to like them. People like them. There's a lot of people like them more dark and gritty. But I like all of the art styles that they've shown on that game so far. And in Diablo Immortal, I think the art, the animation, and the voice acting are really, really good. Those are things in which they really excel. Animations are good. The art is good. All of that. But, like, the actual gameplay of it, no, it ain't it. So, this ain't it.
So the reason I say it's supposed to be a dark game is very similar to Elden Ring. Elden Ring is supposed to be a dark game. I've seen footage, like I've seen screenshots in Elden Ring that it's beautiful. The landscape is absolutely breathtaking.
Yeah.
But it's still a dark game. The themes of that game, the monsters, the things that you deal with, the storylines, quote unquote, that you deal with is dark, gritty, and almost depressing to some extent, right? But a fun depression, not like the kind of blow your brains out depression, like more a fun depression. Yeah, you know, like that fun moment of I can't really get out of bed, but I have to.
Oh, no.
You know, sort of something like that. Whereas Diablo 2 still hit that. Diablo 1, in my opinion, hit that out of the park. Diablo 2 still hit those really dark storylines, dark gameplay, blood, gore, everything, you know, and the blood and the gore really sold itself. And then you go to Diablo 3, and suddenly it is this more gore light. You know, it's almost as if it wanted to go from being a Peggy 16 to a Peggy 13, right? It wanted to be more like parental guidance is advised sort of game, you know, rather than being, well, fuck that. That's not what we're here for. So that's my problem with Diablo Immortal as well. Just looking at the graphics, it doesn't sell me on this dark wanderer going through the world and trying to set right the things that is going wrong. I think from a gameplay perspective, it doesn't. The reason I don't like the gameplay is they promised that this is going to be an experience unlike anything mobile has ever seen. And I know for a fact that's not true. There's plenty of mobile ARPGs that have exactly the same gameplay and experience.
I wouldn't know because I don't see any of the. It's like, to me, look, I'm judging it as a game that I can play on my computer. I know a lot of people are going to be like, but Rurikhan, it's a mobile game. And it's like, well, look, you can't have it both ways. A lot of people are saying, oh, yeah, but it's also on PC, so it's a PC game. Then you have a lot of people, well, yeah, but it's a mobile game. And it's like, look, make up your minds, okay? It's like you can either criticize it as one thing or the other. But it's like, to me, I just don't think it's particularly innovative to spam 4 buttons and left click. You know, you can't even attack in place, which is the worst part about it. You can't, like, you know how in Diablo you can hold shift to attack in place? You can't do that.
Wait, you can't do that?
No. That's why it's so awkward. A lot of times you're trying to click on a monster and you click somewhere just a little bit away from the monster. And by the way, could they have made the cursor any fucking smaller? Like there's this tiny little cursor that has the same colors as everything else that's on screen. Like, dude, maybe I'm just too old. I lose the cursor all the time. Like yesterday I was streaming this and I was streaming this on a 3-monitor setup and I constantly kept clicking off the fucking game window. It's like, Jesus. Oh God, please.
Dude, I wouldn't be able to play that because in Diablo, my cost in place is also my cost. So my character will move with both mouse buttons until I press spacebar, which is my cost in place button. Because my keybinds are set up that my fire is space plus. Right, so spacebar plus my mouse buttons will be my fire buttons.
Oh yeah,
mainly because I don't want the whole you have to like click on the target when I'm dodging. I don't then want to pull back and fucking be like, okay,
you
click
have
the
to
target
click
now, run again. It's bullshit that. So I wouldn't even play that because it would annoy the living fuck out of me.
It annoys the living fuck out of me as well. And I've had a couple of bugs, nothing too terrible. But like an interesting thing is that, you know how everybody's talking about, okay, so the game's got 2 season passes. So you have like the free track of the season pass. You have the paid track of the season pass. You have the collector's track of the season pass. And then you have the, what's it called? Bounty of Plenty or Boon of Plenty, whatever the hell it's called.
Which subscription, but
a subscription
it's not
type
available
of thing.
Right now.
Yes, it is. What do you mean?
Apparently they removed it because it was too I think they removed it yesterday or the day before because people were so angry about the Boon of Plenty that Blizzard removed it, revising it now.
People are gonna love what I'll say next. You know, there's a 4th one.
What's the 4th one?
It unlocks at like level 45 of something. It's called the Path of Prodigy. It's basically just another battle pass, except it's based around your character level. Dude, and it's got a free track and a paid track, and it costs 20 euros.
Jesus, dude,
it's another one. But wait. Because there's more. There's another system that I've barely heard people talk about, right? So, yesterday I was playing the game, and I was actually telling people that because I hit one of the walls, because the game has a couple of experience walls to kind of like keep you grinding, right? I hit one of the walls, and I was theorizing with people. I was telling them, look, in the next 30 minutes, guaranteed, I'm going to get a legendary item. Why? Because whenever you hit one of those walls, they're going to psychologically manipulate you by providing you with a legendary item. And this actually holds true to all of the legendary items that I've gotten, because I've gotten a legendary item close to level 35, which is when you hit the first experience wall. I got another legendary item when I was close to level 40, which is when you hit the second experience wall. At least it was the second. I don't know if there's like more experience walls in between, but and now I was at the level 51, because there's an experience wall at level, you need to get to level 51. And I was like level 47. And I told my chat, listen, I guarantee to you guys, in the next 30 minutes, we're going to get a legendary item. So I do a couple of rifts, boom, legendary item drops. Now, this is not just a regular legendary item. This is a special legendary item. This is this purple little gem-looking thing that stays on the screen. And I click on that, and I'm like, what the fuck is this? And it tells me, like, it's the name of the item itself. But basically, that item unlocks a quest line where you go talk to this dude, and he's a spirit, and he takes you to a secret section in the city. You go underground, and in there, there's like this whole different progression system in the game, which you can slot this like a gem on a talent tree almost, and then you can upgrade this by getting a few gems that you collect by, there's like a zone where this thing is, and you go through the zone and you pick up a couple of keys from these monsters that you kill, and then you get to the end of the zone and there's a bunch of fucking chests. So you open some of these chests with keys, but naturally you're not going to have keys to open all of the chests. So when you get to the chest that you don't have keys for, they're like, well, you could open this chest if you want to put some platinum on it.
Oh my.
Now, platinum is the secondary premium currency, so you can get some by playing free to play, but not a whole lot. So I open one of those chests, bunch of more gems come out, and these are the gems that you use to upgrade this skill tree where I slotted in this purple thing, and that greatly increases your power. So here's the thing. I was listening to a video this morning because I wasn't super sure about how the system worked. Like, I know that you can go through the place, I think once every day or something. They give you a couple of quests. You can also buy quests with this currency that you get for doing achievements and activities in the game. And then you open up all these chests, you get the gems to upgrade the system to gain more and more power. And what the guy told me, what the guy was saying in the video was basically like, oh, yeah, so you can open these chests with platinum, and then after you open all of the chests, another door opens up and you can go into another room with more of these chests where you can spend more platinum to drop more gems to upgrade even more. So it's not just enough that they have pay to win on legendary gems. They have pay to win on all these other things. On top of it, they have pay to win on this secondary progression system that gives you passive bonuses. And I'm just like, dude, what the fuck?
Dude, it feels like they have basically added every single possible way
everything. It's everything
of paying in the game. In any mobile game ever, Diablo Immortal is a collection of all like literally all payment methods.
And then some, and it gets worse because like, so there's a system in game that lets you do raids, which include like up to 8 players, I think. And the first time that I unlocked my raid, I was like, okay, so there's a raid thing here, and I go to the raid and it says, okay, you need what would they call it? Not attack, power rating, something rating, like your power level almost. Which is different from your resonance level, because there's also a resonance level that determines how powerful you are, but there's another one that's like your power rating. And so you needed 420 power rating, and I had about 300. And I was like, what? I just unlocked this raid and I can't do it. Okay, that's fair. So they level block you along the way. They give you a bunch of XP walls. Like a friend of mine gave up on the first like XP wall because he's like, I'm not gonna grind this shit. This is bullshit. So there's at least 3 that I found so far. Then there's the raid wall that they hit you with. And at that point, like, they're just like, oh, you know, you have the battle pass. In the battle pass, you can increase your rating because we're going to give you power. We're going to give you more XP. We're going to give you all these things. And I was like, dude, fuck off. Like, what the fuck?
You know what pisses me off about this? So we're looking at the system and we're obviously, if you're listening to everything that Ruud is saying here, you find yourself very quickly being blown away and almost overwhelmed by the amount of bullshit, right? The amount of pay to win and walls and stuff. Now think about it in reverse. Every single one of these things had to be carefully implemented at very careful times, at very careful moments to ensure maximum purchasability.
Oh, yeah.
Which means that the vast majority of time that went into developing this game did not go into developing the game. It went into developing the monetization system of the game.
I have a theory. I have a theory that the team that worked on Reaper of Souls, they were working on a second expansion. And I believe that in Jason Schreier article, it actually said that they were pretty far off on that expansion before Blizzard canned it because they were like, we don't know how to monetize this because, you know, obviously they wanted to monetize the fuck out of it. My theory is that a huge portion of Diablo Immortal is essentially the content that they had planned for that expansion. of Diablo 3, because I mean, you look at it and there's even some tile sets that are essentially the same tile sets as Diablo 3. They're just zoomed in more because it's a mobile game, right? It's just zoomed in and not as zoomed out as you'd be in Diablo 3. So my theory is even that I would say about 80% of the game was already done, and most of the development was actually spent on all of these bullshit little systems and consulting with psychologists to see just how far you could reach into the human psyche to fuck with people. Because here's another thing that I don't know if you know, but like your reward for beating a dungeon for the first time is you get to do an exclusive microtransaction. So like when you first start playing the game, they tell you, oh, this is the starter pack or something like that, which you can pay, which is just 99 cents. And they call that the 800% value. Then you do your first dungeon, which is like, you go kill Leoric, because you always have to kill Leoric. And you kill Leoric. And after you're done with that, there's a little notification pops up. You click the notification. It's like, oh man, you finished this dungeon. By the way, you can now buy the one-time purchase of this loot box that includes these items. It only costs 99 cents. And this is 570% value or whatever. And then after you do the next dungeon, it's the same thing, but this time it costs €2. And then you do the next dungeon, and it's the same thing, but this time it costs €5. And again, €7. And again, €10. I'm not joking. This is literally how it is in the game. So if you go to if I were to open up my in-game shop right now, all of those things are there, and I can purchase all of them one time only, because these are limited because, I've done these dungeons, so therefore I can buy these things. And there's valuable items there, like, for instance, those legendary crests that you need in order to get the legendary gems, they have those inside those boxes.
Yeah.
They also have, like, legendary gear and a bunch of other bullshit, so yeah. Actually, no, I don't think they have legendary gear, because you remember how Wyatt Chang made a post? I think you even made a video about this. Wyatt Chang made a post where he talked about how you cannot get legendary gear through money in Diablo Immortal. And then he had to clarify, well, what I meant was it's the gear itself, like the boots, the glove, but the legendary gems, they're not really gear now.
Yeah, but like, they are gear because all of your power comes from them.
Of course, dude. It's so ridiculous.
Dude, so I made a video on Wyatt Chang's lies in this. He lied straight up. 4 months ago, Wyatt Chang said there is no way to upgrade or increase the power level of your gear through real money.
That's no way.
He said it in a post. You see, the problem is, it's not a lie. It's wordplay. Because he is technically correct. You can't spend $5 and then upgrade your gear. You can spend $5 and buy legendary crests, which will then increase your gear. But it's not straightforward, right? It's not like $5 and your gear goes up 100 item levels. It's $5
because
legendary crest and
you play the loot box. Because essentially what happens is in this game you don't just buy a loot box. You buy the thing that triggers a loot box, but then you still have to play it. Now it's just a formality because Elder Rifts are fucking piss easy. Like there's nothing challenging about them at all. You go in there, you destroy them.
They can't be challenging, right?
Yeah, because it's a loot box.
Can't be.
Yeah,
you can't make it.
You already paid for it. Yeah, you already paid for it. Therefore, you're expected to get the reward. So you just go in there, you kill a bunch of monsters, you get your reward pretty much for free.
Yeah. If it was difficult to do and there was a way to fail, Blizzard would be in lawsuits up to their fucking eyeballs, right? Because
eventually,
I purchased something and you didn't give it to me, which is even worse than just loot box straight out of the gate. The issue that I have with this is they spent so much of potential development time just trying to get the monetization right, to make sure that they can milk you for as much as possible. And I was, while I was watching the videos on people actually diving into this, I was reminded of, this is not so popular nowadays anymore, but it was popular about 1.5 years, 2 years ago. Very popular. A lot of these sort of podcasters would do the free everyone can watch version, and then they would have the sort of half an hour to an hour afterwards that would be for supporters only. Yeah, the after show that would be supporters only, right? And
that's
I
what we
remember
need to do, dude. We need to do the.
But the reason I hated that always was the free version is sort of filled with basically just talking about the topics that will be discussed in detail in the paid version.
Stick around for the after show, guys. Yeah.
Exactly. So you're not really getting a podcast in the first hour or two of the show. You're getting a sort of pre-show
to
teaser. The actual show
yeah.
that will happen afterwards. And I've always despised that. It's one of the reasons my own Patreon and stuff is set up in such a way that if you don't have the money to support me, you're not missing out on much if you don't, right? My own thing is literally me 3 or 4 times a week sitting down, having a coffee with patrons on live stream and drinking and writing scripts and stuff like that, right? That's it. That's what I do. So it's sort of like a behind the scenes look at the videos that I make, but I don't have exclusive videos on Patreon because I don't like that idea. I don't like the idea of saying, because once I do exclusive videos on Patreon, what ends up happening is I now have to decide which videos do I make Patreon only and which videos do I give for free. And the natural inclination is to make the best videos supporter only.
Of course.
Right? Because you want more people to support you. So that means you're actively making your normal content worse to make your paid for content better.
It's like the old, it's pay for convenience argument. You're paying for convenience. No, you're paying to give them a reason to inconvenience you.
Yeah. Pretty much, right? I did actually have someone replied with an interesting comment. I want to see
to Diablo Immortal, to your Diablo Immortal video. Oh, I can't wait.
No. To our podcast, the last podcast we did. I'm just trying to find the comment there. Because yeah, someone actually replied, but I want to make sure.
I don't know.
How did I see
which comment you're talking about? I mean, I've read all the comments, but obviously there's a lot of stuff in there. I don't know which one specifically you're talking about.
It was a guy who basically said they want to play devil's advocate
for Diablo Immortal.
You said, yeah, with the whole paid for convenience. They don't agree that it's as straightforward as we put it. But I can't remember where the fuck I saw that comment. For some reason, I feel like the comment happened on.
I seem to remember
on my channel, but it shouldn't be. It might be on Discord, actually.
I seem to remember someone trying to make the argument that, like, in some countries or something like that, like, you know, free-to-play games are actually really good. And yeah, sure. But it's like, I feel in a way that almost feels like even more exploitative due to the fact that, you know, those people are not, you're never going to get access to the real end game of the game by playing free to play. It's just not going to happen. Like, forget about it. You want to do like a proper build? Good luck. Good luck with that. Like, you might get a couple of hours of potential enjoyment out of it, but there's just so much better content out there than what Diablo Immortal is doing that it's just not even funny. I mean, literally, people in my stream keep asking me, Rurikhan, why are you putting yourself through this? And I'm like, so that you don't have to. I put myself through this so that you guys don't have to. Like, yesterday I was hoping I'd hit a wall. Yesterday I was hoping I would hit a wall so bad that I wouldn't be able to progress anymore, but I haven't. Like, the worst wall that I hit, it was like, okay, I'm level 46 and I gotta get to level 51. And I'm pretty sure I can do that in a couple of hours, so whatever. Mm-hmm. But, you know, I just want to really hit a fucking wall where it's like, now you pay, or we're going to take like a week of your life away if you don't pay us. That's the wall that I want to hit, but I haven't really hit it so far. So, yeah, unfortunate.
I wouldn't be surprised if that is exactly what happens, if that is exactly what ends up happening, because at the end of the day...
I think that happens after you finish the story. Like, I'm 90% sure that's what's going to happen after you finish the story and they unlock, I believe that they call it Hell difficulty. And then there's going to be like Hell 1, Hell 2, Hell 3, kind of like Torment levels in Diablo 3. And I think that's the point at which is like, okay, now you either swipe or you can go get fucked. Mm-hmm. I think that's the point at which I'll reach, and then I'll be like, okay, finally we hit the wall, and now I can finally do my video. But, you know, so far in terms of just seeing the story, you can see it, but it's not like it's the most interesting story ever, right? I kind of feel like it's at least not as bad as the story of Diablo 3, where you kind of like kill Diablo and the Soul Stone falls and nobody gives a fuck. And you're like, dude, do you remember in Diablo 2 where we were literally chasing down these fucking stones because they're the most dangerous thing ever? We go to like the Forge of Hell or whatever to break them so that the prime evils don't return. And in Diablo 3, the bitch just falls down and it's fine. And then in Reaper of Souls, the same thing happens again. It's like, what the fuck?
Dude, I feel like Diablo, specifically Diablo, in terms of the world, have basically turned into a sort of rinse-repeat kind of game. Everyone you kill in 1 and 2, you'll kill again in 3. Diablo is basically at this point just a fucking pinata, a loot pinata, because he spawns every single game and you get to kill him every single game.
I haven't seen him, but I've seen Bale.
He'll probably be in the expansion that you can buy for like $59.99, right? Or some shit like that. I'm sick and tired of this because I asked this yesterday during my mod discussion. What are the chances of this coming to WoW eventually? And eventually coming to games like Overwatch? Because there's so many people that is defending the disgusting monetization of this game.
Yeah, dude, like, guaranteed, this is pretty much guaranteed. Anybody who thinks that Diablo 4 is not going to be pay to win, you're just like on some weapons grade copium, my guy. It's just like Diablo 4 is 1,000% going to be pay to win, because here's what people need to understand. Despite all of the videos, despite all of the stuff that is happening around Diablo Immortal, this game has 10x'd their investment by now, if not more. Like, this isn't even like a theory. This is a very conservative estimate, okay? Extremely conservative. I'd be surprised if by the end of the week they haven't 100x'd their investment. Because, why? Because psychological manipulation, dudes. Because that's what they're doing. They're using psychological manipulation to fuck with people. And there's a lot of people out there that are extremely vulnerable to this type of psychological manipulation. Like, I can look at that plus 800% value all day long in the store because I have strong mental fortitude. And I'm going to be like, I'm going to buy that shit, whatever. But there's a lot of people that they'll see it and they're just like, oh, dude, it's like it's at 800% value, dude. What the fuck? I got to buy it. I gotta buy it now. I gotta buy that goddamn what do they call it? The battle pass, and then I gotta buy the boon of plenty, and then I gotta buy the path of prodigy, and then I gotta buy some platinum so that I can unlock the Ben's vault, which is the purple thingies that I was talking about earlier. Yeah, I gotta buy all that shit. Yeah, sure.
So I have a bit of information here for people. On Metacritic, which is basically the golden standard for ratings, on Metacritic, the game's meta score based on critical reviews. So this is from what they would call "quote unquote" trusted media sources.
Mainstream media.
It's 81, right? The user score, on the other hand, is 0.8. 0.8 out of 10.
Now, I'm not saying that these mainstream media websites got to get them Diablo Immortal banner ads. I'm not saying that, but I'm also not saying it.
So listen to what this is, right? So comicbook.com gave it a 90, and they said, whether you're playing it to stay occupied until Diablo 4 comes out or playing it out of excitement, Diablo Immortal is simply worth playing.
No,
then
it's
you have
not.
Merlin in Kazani from Turkey giving it an 82. The old hack and slash series is here again against the fanatics who want to bring Diablo back. We need to prevent Worldstone from reuniting. The game, which acts as a bridge between Diablo 2 and 3, should be given a chance.
No, it shouldn't.
Not a single one of the critical reviews,
the mainstream
reviews, gives any mention to the monetization. Any mention whatsoever to monetization. They only speak about the gameplay. 0.8. Now, I'm not sure. I'm going to have to check here. But I'm pretty sure 0.8 may be...
it's among the lowest for sure. Yeah, it's pretty low.
I think it is actually like the lowest ever. I think it's the lowest
Interesting.
ever.
But it's like... You know what's going to happen. Like, we even talked about it in the previous podcast. Like, Blizzard's going to step back, reduce the monetization just a smidge. And people are going to be like, oh, they're listening. Yay. And it's going to 1,000% work. It's going to work, too, because people are fickle beasts, man. It's like the second Blizzard pulls down on the throttle just a little bit, people are going to jump at the chance to love this game. And the worst part is like I'm saying, like, this advances nothing in the franchise as a whole. Nothing that is done here hasn't been done better by Diablo 3. And there's just nothing there. There's really nothing there. It's a big nothing burger. Even in terms of story, because, like, you know, I want to play to see the story. The story so far has been, you know how at the end of Diablo 2, Tyrael shatters the World Stone?
Yeah.
Shards have fallen all over Sanctuary, and those shards apparently have a whole lot of power because you know how the Diablo Soul Stone and Mephisto Souls, those are all made out of pieces of the World Stone. So that's why pieces of the World Stone are so incredibly powerful. So now there's creatures that are picking up these shards that have fallen into the world after Tyrael busted down the World Stone. And these creatures are becoming very powerful. We have to hunt them down, collect these shards of the World Stone, and break them. And the point that I'm at in the story is, like, I destroyed 3 shards so far, and one of the shards got away. And I'm chasing down the dude who's got the other shard. Like, that's it. The whole story so far has been me hunting down these shards and breaking them down. That's it. That's the story.
So, just to give you... I mean, I didn't expect much from the story to begin with. When Blizzard said this is a story-driven game, I was like, yeah, fuck you, bro.
It's got a lot of voice acting, though, I'll tell you that.
Yeah, but that's just... So, can I just quickly explain here? So, yesterday when I looked at the Metacritic score for Diablo Immortal, it was at 1.4. It's now on 0.8, so it is falling fast.
Yeah.
Just to give you guys an example of the games that it currently shares a list with, right? So it is currently on par with Grand Theft Auto The Trilogy, the Definitive Edition.
Wow.
FIFA 21, NBA 2K21, FIFA 20 Legacy Edition, right?
That's the Switch one.
Yeah, it's the Switch one.
I know.
If it falls any fucking lower, like even 1 point, it's going to share with Grand Theft Auto The Trilogy, the Definitive Edition. That's the Xbox Series X one. Or even lower than that would be Grand Theft Auto The Trilogy, the Definitive Edition for PC.
Wow.
Madden NFL 2022. Madden NFL 2022 for Xbox. And if it falls 2 more points, so 0.2 more points, it will equal Warcraft 3. Reforged.
That's what it's shooting for. It's shooting for that Reforged score, dude.
Oh yeah, and to be fair,
Blizzard's like,
Reforged.
Here at Blizzard, we appreciate consistency.
Yeah, I just want to really paint this picture for people. Warcraft 3 Reforged was the most disliked video game in the world, right? For almost, was it 6-7 months? It wasn't until Madden NFL 21 came around that it finally got replaced as not the bottom of the list, because Madden NFL 2021 on PlayStation 4 and Xbox One, it sits on 0.5 and 0.3. So it's just a little bit lower than Warcraft 3. And that's where Diablo Immortal is probably heading. I'm pretty sure by tomorrow, if I check the user critical scores, it's going to be even lower, yes.
But yeah, it's like we're saying, they're gonna ride the negativity for a little bit, then they're gonna balance it out. Because like at this time, even though they're getting hit with all this flack, they're still milking whales, dude. They're harpooning people left and right. Like there's for every person that's upset, like here's what the level of scale that people need to understand. For each one of you that is upset, there's 1 million of you that are pumping money in there. And this is not an exaggeration. This is like 30 million pre-registrations. I didn't even pre-register. And it's like one of the other really disgusting things is, you know how every online game, whenever it comes out, there's like server problems, there's queues, there's all, and the developers are always saying, we can't help it, there's technology limitations. You know that this game did not have a single queue for anyone? 30 million pre-registrations, not a single queue. There's been some people that have experienced the odd disconnect here and there, but like nothing too major. Like the infrastructure just worked. Somehow, for this particular gem of a game, they fucking figured it out. Like, dude, listen, when I logged in, which I logged in on PC day one, the moment it released on PC, I logged in and I didn't even went to like one of the free, like the green servers. I was looking at the server list and there was a server that had said, 3 people from your friends list are on this server. And I'm like, okay, I'll jump in here. And it said, oh, this server's red and it's full and it's all this. And I just go in there and I create my character really slowly. Like I actually take some time in the character creation, whatever, tap out my name, enter, first try, first attempt, no disconnects, no bullshit, no queues, no nothing. No nothing. Dude, they put so much money behind this. They're just like, dude.
Yeah.
Servers and servers and servers. Like, there's nothing. There hasn't really been a massive outage at all in this game, which is fucking disgusting, dude.
But they have to, right? Because it's a free-to-play game. It's not like with their World of Warcraft or Overwatch games where you have to buy it.
You already bought it. Yeah.
You already bought it, so they don't give a fuck whether you spend 2 or 3 days getting in. This is a free-to-play game.
You can't
people
play.
Can't get in.
People can't
get
make money.
in.
Yeah.
They just uninstall it, right?
But basically it proves that is like, listen, this isn't like an insurmountable problem. Developers are just not willing to put enough money behind it. Because if they did, this is the result. There's no, at least you guys can correct me in the comment section, but I haven't heard anything of like massive outages, queues, or anything like, I haven't heard anything about queues at all. And I haven't experienced any queues at all getting into the game.
I mean,
every time I go in, instantly, even the server even shows up as red. Like it's like, oh, the red server, it's full, might be lagging or whatever. I go in, it's running fine, no problems.
Yeah. I think you would have seen articles, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Would have seen articles, and I've been following the game quite closely. I've not seen a single article saying that people are experiencing queues or people are experiencing incredible disconnect on
they
mass.
figured it out, man. They fucking figured it out. They solved the problem.
It just works, dude. It just works because it has to.
Of course.
And so people need to understand something. Yes, the majority of the player base is very unhappy with the monetization options.
No, I disagree.
The issue is,
I 100% disagree.
I've actually,
I think it's a minority. I think it's a really small minority. I think a majority of the player base is just like playing this shit on their phone for 5 minutes. They buy a couple of Eternal Orbs and they log out. I guarantee you, a majority of people, they're just playing this shit on their phone. They're not even watching YouTube videos because they don't give a fuck. Because from like the what do you call it? From the bar that you set for mobile games, which are mostly shit. This is like the fucking cream of the crop. Even though if you compare it to any other like decent PC/console game, it's a piece of shit. But like in the reality of the mobile market, this is like one of the best games ever made in terms of playability because it plays great.
Yeah.
So,
but you see, the thing is, going on the numbers, it suggests that the majority of people are unhappy. If you go on sort of Metacritic,
but that's
Blizzard is already claiming that they're getting review bombed, even though if you have a majority of people that like something, review bombs are very, very
No,
difficult.
but that's the thing. The problem with these type of games is like, because you're still thinking about it from the perspective of like a console/PC game. The reality of mobile games is that a majority of people, they're not going to Metacritic. They don't give a fuck. They're not doing anything. They're just like picking up the game on their phone and they're playing. And here's the thing, like, what is it rated at in the App Store? That's the important part, right? Let's look. Diablo Immortal.
Yeah, tell me what
App
they rated
Store
at.
rating. Like, let me just see. 4.7 stars out of 5. Now let's check out
Are you serious?
I'm serious, dude. I am 100%.
No way, bro.
It is 4.7 out of 5 with 49,000 reviews. 4.7. Now let's take a look at the iOS store. Diablo Immortal iOS store rating. Let's see it. It is. Wait, what the fuck? No, this is.
4.
Oh wait,
7.
App Store. App Store goes to the thing. I shouldn't have typed App Store. I wanted to see Android Store. So the one that I just give you is actually the Apple Store one. So Android Store rating. 4.5. 4.5 star rating with 251,000 reviews. Actually, it's 4.1 right now. 4.1 with 368,000. So as you can see, just like I've been telling you, dude, like you got 300 reviews here, you got 50,000 more over on Apple Store, and everybody is rating it at least above 4 out of 5. Like I'm telling you, dude, like if you go, how many reviews did you even have over on Metacritic for that 0.8? I bet it doesn't even come close to what is essentially 400,000 reviews. See, that's what I'm telling you, dude, is a majority of people, they're just playing this shit on their phone. They're like, oh my God, look at these fucking graphics, dude. They don't give a fuck about the 800% value. They don't give a fuck about the fact that they're getting milked, and that's why Blizzard hasn't addressed it yet, because they're still milking the casual people that play video games on phone. They're still milking those, right? And when they start seeing that start taper off, right? When that starts going down eventually, when it's like, okay, people got burned out of the game or something like that, maybe they hit a wall for whatever reason, right? When that happens, that's when you're going to see Blizzard come out and going like, okay, guys, we hear you. Yeah. We're going to lower the bad monetization practices. And then they're going to get all the people that are upset right now that are their core gamers. They're going to be like, oh, Blizzard is listening to us. Oh, thank God. And they're going to crank down the values to what they originally wanted to begin with, like we discussed in the previous podcast. And the people on phones, they're going to love it even more because like, oh my God, they actually made it even better. This is great. It's a win-win, dude. They can't lose. And this is going to make them so much fucking money that there is no reason for them to make an ethical product in Diablo 4. As a matter of fact, their investment board are going to go like, what the fuck do you mean you want to do an ethical? You guys are crazy. You see the money we made on Diablo Immortal? You guys are fucking insane. We want even more than that. You crank up that bitch even more. 100%, dude.
So I wanna point out that I have lost all faith in humanity.
Yeah,
and
dude.
Gamers specifically, I feel like I feel like
I don't
gamers.
Think, no. Here's the thing. When you talk like that, you have to define what do you mean by gamers, though, right? Because like, I mean, the people that are making this be successful, it's not gamers that watch you or me. These aren't the people. I mean, sure, there's a couple of those fucking the fan Sandys that are gonna go like suck on Bobby Kotick's dick and be like, "Oh, there's not really a problem. It's a PvE game. It's fine." Like, you know, there's people like that, sure, but they're the minority when it comes to the people that we broadcast for. So it's like when you're defining gamers, you have to define which group of gamers we're talking about here. But as a whole, yeah, we fucking failed, dude. We fucking failed.
We failed hard. Listen to this fucking asshole on the Android Google Play Store, right? He goes, update. It would be extremely helpful to have a spinner or progress bar on the splash screen. Just something to show players that it's loading and not just stuck there. The repair client at the bottom is a bit misleading. I thought it was telling me I needed to repair my client. It doesn't look like a button to perform the repair operation. Also, game effing rocks. No issues. Blizzard, you sexy bastards, you never disappoint me. I will say this, though, if there is no cow level. 5 out of 5 stars, by the way.
There it is.
I think you gamers deserve what the fuck they get, dude. Just they deserve what they get. Fuck it. You know what?
It's very sad, dude.
I hope and pray that every single video game coming out of Blizzard is exactly the same as Diablo Immortal.
I hope
because
not. Fucking hell.
No, I hope so.
What if Dragonfly is like that, dude? What the fuck? Don't you want Dragonfly to be good? Come on.
No, because the gamers deserve this. This is what you deserve. Because for years I have warned about this. I have said that shit like this is coming. And I have been told constantly, dude, it's just a fucking mount on the cash shore. Yeah. Shut the fuck up. And look at where we are now. So you know what? Fuck it. Let's go, Blizzard. Let's get all the monetization in. I want Blizzard to actually no longer have Mythic Plus keys. Mythic Plus keys should also be crests that you buy from the fucking store. And that's the only way you can do a plus 15 is if you actually bought the fucking plus 15 of the store.
What if you fail it, though?
Imagine if you fail it, it's fucking gone. It's gone. You have to pay. So it would be $1.99 for a plus 15 key. And if you fail it, you can actually repair it for $1.
It's like you're back at the what do you call it? Like those carnival fairs. It's like you're getting fucking scammed by the carnies, dude.
Dude, I want this because the gamers deserve this. This is what we deserve because when we could have fought, we were so busy. Just going, no, fuck it. Let's suck Bobby Kotick's dick a little bit more.
Dude, I've been fighting this for so many years, dude. I'm Jesus.
I want to see this happen even more. I genuinely want to see this happen even more. Jesus Christ. Because I don't think until such time that every game turns into a nightmare, I don't think gamers are going to rise up. Because I've seen even now on Twitter, the amount of defense that Diablo Immortal is getting is ridiculous. The amount of people that is, I literally just clicked on a link while we were sitting here. That's, by the way, why I'm so angry right now. Because someone in my Discord actually linked the Diablo Immortal forums. Anyone and everyone that says anything negative about the game is getting downvoted to fuck on the forums. Like, they are getting attacked by the people on the forums.
Yep.
So this is what I want now. I want gaming
Scorched
to turn
Earth.
into an absolute... Yeah. I want Blizzard to turn gaming into an absolute fuck fest of how much money can we make out of every single game.
Jesus Christ. Yeah, guys, it's a little bit of doom and gloom when it comes to Diablo Immortal, but we already said our prediction, which is basically like Blizzard's just going to come around. Eventually, whenever the mobile crowd starts tapering off, they're going to come around and they're going to bump back all of the values. Everybody's going to go like, they listened, they're the best, we always knew you had it in you, Blizzard, yes, please. And that's going to be it. That's just going to be it. It is what it is.
Yeah, exactly. Right now, they know that they can make a lot of money off of whales, which is why it's so incredibly aggressive. It'll probably stay this incredibly aggressive for at least a month.
I'd say, one to 2 months, give or take.
Yeah. Once they start seeing like the whales sort of tapering off, that's when they'll start dropping the prices to a more sustainable level, right? Because now they have to start focusing on prolonged play. And again, it's about that turning players into payers. The people who do not make a single purchase for the first month of playing aren't making those purchases because it's too expensive or too difficult and they don't understand it. So after a month or two, if Blizzard sort of simplifies the upgrade process, they make it cheaper, suddenly you turn a bunch of new people into payers, and now you're getting a renewed bump in your overall monetization. So and you obviously get to pretend like you're a good guy, Blizzard, listening to the community.
Yeah.
After all of your feedback, we decided to simplify our monetization processes. because we're the good guys. And like
Clearly.
you say, I want Blizzard to go apeshit on every single one of their games now. I want to see the exact same thing in Diablo 4. I want to see this exact same thing in Overwatch 2. I want to see this in Dragonflight. And it's already possible for Blizzard to do it in Dragonflight without too much. So all Blizzard needs right now for World of Warcraft to turn into an absolute pay-to-win is a reroll button on the vault. A single reroll button on the vault that costs, say, 500,000 gold, right?
Yep.
Or let's say 100,000 gold to reroll. And it gets more and more expensive every single time you reroll, but it's unlimited. You can reroll until your piece of gear is on that vault. People will reroll, run out of gold, then buy gold with using the token so they continue rerolling, so they can get the piece of loot that they were after. If Blizzard does that, it's effectively printing money and becoming the true pay-to-win experience that I know they can do.
That is a bleak future, dude.
But we deserve it. We fucking deserve it because we
I don't
didn't
think I deserve it. Fuck that shit.
I think we all do. I think if only because I've never purchased a single thing off of a cash store, apart from League of Legends, which I view as a free-to-play game, therefore supporting its cash store is actually supporting the game. But I've never, and also because their monetization isn't scumbags. It's literally buy a champion so that I can play the champion. But apart from that, I don't support cash shops. But if I want the gaming industry to wake the fuck up, I need Blizzard and all other gaming companies to become more scumbag. Because that's the only way they're going to wake up. They have to realize just how bad this is.
My fear with that is that due to the fact that our youth has kind of been trained to accept this, they'll just accept that as well. That's it.
You see,
and what ends up happening is like most people who are like older than 30 or something like that, they'll just either leave gaming or play old video games, which is essentially what I'm planning on doing when shit goes that bad. And, new games will all just be like that forever and it's over. I think that might be what just ends up happening. But, that's a little bit too much doom and gloom. We should probably call it here.
Yeah.
We'll call it here, guys. Once again, if you guys are enjoying the Frozen Sodium Throne, remember you can hit the like button. If you have been listening to this on Apple Podcasts or Google Podcasts or whatever, remember to leave a rating. Helps out a lot. Not a whole lot of people are checking out the audio-only version. And check us out on YouTube. There's going to be links to Accolonn stuff in the description. And we'll see you guys in the next one. Stay strong.
Oh, yeah.
Stay safe. Peace out.
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Peace out.